Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today I'm talking about the movie The Last Voyage of the Demeter. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you have not seen the movie yet and you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go ahead and watch the movie first before you watch this review. So, Last Voyage of the Demeter is based on parts from Chapter 7 in Bram Stoker's Dracula about the voyage of Dracula to from Transylvania to England. The ship and the people who were on it. So, as far as what I liked about the movie, overall, I liked the cast. I really liked Corey Hawkins as the doctor in there, Liam Cunningham as the captain, David Dismalchin as the first mate, I think, and Aisling Franciosi as the young Romani woman they find. And I also liked Woody Norman as Toby, the little boy, because yeah, a lot of times kid performances are rough, but I thought overall this was pretty good. Yeah, I liked him. I think the costumes in this overall were well done. They looked believable, that they were well worn and dirty and looked like they were actually something that I can imagine people actually living in and working in the 1800s. I thought the set design overall for the ship itself, it's mostly all takes place on the ship, was good, believable. It looked like a ship. I assume they actually built a lot of it. The cinematography, I thought it was well shot. It looked nice. It looked very atmospheric and sort of moody. It was by a guy named Tom Stern, who does a lot of Clint Eastwood stuff, everything from Blood Work on, pretty much, or at least most of it he's done. And he replaced a guy named Roman Osten, who was initially supposed to do it. I like the music in this by Bear McCreary. He does a lot of stuff, Walking Dead, Godzilla King of the Monsters, a lot of video game stuff like God of War and stuff. He actually ended up replacing Thomas Newman, who is one of the Newman family, along with Randy Newman. He does a lot of film scores. And I like the concept of this, the overall idea of taking just, this brief part of the novel Dracula and expanding it into a movie and sort of seeing, from the perspective of these people on the ship's a great idea. And really, in a lot of ways, it's like Alien, but with Dracula, which, I mean, yeah, if you tell me, hey, man, you want to see like an Alien movie, but with Dracula instead of an alien? Yeah, sounds like a great idea. I love it. And I also really like just seeing just sailors in the 1800s. I think because definitely there's been a lot of pirate movies, and there's even been movies like Master and Commander about like naval captains and stuff. But I'd like to see more movies about just regular sailors, cargo sailors or fishermen or something like that. I guess I want Moby Dick is what I'm saying. So yeah. Other than what I disliked about it, so a big part of the movie why I wanted to see this movie was David Desmalchin. He's on a guest on a lot of like podcasts that I watch and stuff, and everyone always says he's great. And every time his name comes up, they're always like, "Oh yeah, that guy's great. I love that guy." He was probably most recently he played Polka Dot Man in James Gunn's Suicide Squad. And I think when he was doing press for that, he mentioned this, and he was like, "Yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of a smaller movie, but I'm excited to do it." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like a really cool idea." So I was excited for this, and I have been for a while. But I have to say, I'm not quite sure what was going on with his accent in this, because everyone else seems to have kind of a British or an Irish kind of accent. There's different characters from different places, so they have slightly different accents. But his character, and maybe they said it, maybe I missed it, but it's just at first I was like, oh, okay, he's kind of doing like a Daniel Day-Lewis, Gangs of New York kind of thing, where it's this kind of, I don't know, but then sometimes it sounded vaguely more like Russian or Eastern European, and then sometimes it sounded more like Irish or like, I wasn't quite sure what he was going for. And for all I know, it's actually a very accurate accent. He spent a lot of time. They worked with a dialect coach, but just to me, it was a little distracting. Where I'm like, all right, I'm having a hard time placing where you're supposed to be from here. I think the movie itself, it's a little slow. It's a little boring. I found myself just kind of bored at times. I think the kid, like I said, I like the kid, and I may have even joked. I know I said in my Evil Dead Rise review I don't like kids in horror movies, and I may have even said if you're going to put him in there, at least kill him. If I didn't say it, I thought it. And I remember thinking that in this movie too. But then they killed the kid, and I actually felt bad that they killed the kid. And I mean, I guess he had to die. Everyone has to die. I mean, that's basically what happened in the book, and so you kind of going in the movie knowing everyone's going to die. But I mean, you didn't have to kill the kid. You could have found a way around it. I don't know. You could have done something else. And so I feel like in a lot of ways the movie's just not very scary either. If anything, it's just more sad than scary. And I did see some people kind of say it was kind of more lighthearted than they expected, but for me, I actually thought it was kind of lacking in any kind of like levity at all, and could have maybe used a little more humor or lightheartedness. I mean, I don't need like Marvel jokes, but like something. And I think for me, the biggest issue that I had was the CGI. I don't mean to say it's bad, but because it's actually not. It's fine. You can see behind me there the Dracula who's sort of based on the Nosferatu Dracula, or vampire, Conan Olaf, whatever you call him. But yeah, I was a little underwhelmed by it, and I think it's mostly because it was CGI and not practical. And I realize CGI is hard, and those guys, don't get paid very well and do a lot of work. And I'm sure with more time and more money, they could have done better. And it's really not terrible. It's actually, I think, pretty good. And just for me, it just seemed fake. And I really would have appreciated if they would have spent a little of their $45 million budget on just a nice prosthetic suit for the guy. And honestly, I think there is some actual practical effects in here. I think some of the arms with the vampire are, and there's a part where the Romani woman is like encased in this sort of membrane. And I believe that looks like that might be real. Maybe not. I don't know. There might even be more real stuff in here than I realized. But to me, it looked like bad CGI and the fire too kind of thing. Maybe I've been watching too many VFX artists react videos or something. But yeah, I was a little disappointed and underwhelmed by that. So yeah, I think that's my biggest thing is when they finally do reveal the vampire, he's just like, it's not that scary to me. So other than that, the movie is directed by Andre Overdahl. He did The Autopsy of Jane Doe and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I didn't realize he directed this when I went to see it. I did not like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I don't remember why I didn't like it. I just remember I didn't like it. And so I feel like if I would have realized it was him, maybe I would have been like, I can skip this one. It was written a story by Bragi F. Shute, who's written Escape Room and Samaritan, and Zach Olkowitz, who's written Bullet Train and Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Apparently, Bragi Shute had this idea like 20 years ago when he was like touring. I think he was working as like a prop designer, and he saw some props from the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula movie, and he kind of came up with this idea. I think he saw the prop of the boat, and I was like, oh, hey, there you go. It is adapted from, in the credits it says it's adapted from the Captain's Log, a chapter from the 1897 novel Dracula. That's not entirely true. It's actually taken from chapter 7, which is called Cutting from the Daily Graph, and it's actually part of Mina Murray's journal. And then within that, there's a chapter called Log of the Demeter. Doesn't really matter. I'm just being pedantic, but that's what that is. So yeah, Rotten Tomatoes on this one, there's a pretty big difference, I think, between the audience and the critics. Critics are at 49%, and the audience at 71%, which I think is pretty common for horror movies. I think horror critics are maybe a little more discriminating, whereas horror fans are easy to please, I think, in a lot of ways. Not to say anything about it, but it just, box office on this one, it's made $6.5 million so far on a $45 million budget. So it's tough. I think they were expecting it to make between 6 and 11 million. So this is definitely on the low end of expectations. And, with a $45 million budget, they're going to need to make like probably 90 million to be profitable. And I know I've seen tons of ads for this, so I'm sure they spent money on marketing. So it's gonna be tough for this movie to make money. Like I said, it's been in development for like 20 plus years. At one point, I think Guillermo del Toro was going to direct it. He may have produced it, actually. I'm not sure. Like I said, it's kind of this alien on a ship type thing, which again, I think is a great concept, but in execution, it didn't really work for me quite as well. But yeah, there's definitely a scene where they're sitting around the table and talking, and I'm like, oh, this is Alien. This is just Alien. Okay, cool. Like, I get it. That's nice. And so, speaking of Alien, I guess, or Prometheus at least, at one point, Noomi Rapace was actually attached to this, and she ended up not doing it, I think, because of Prometheus. This was obviously, 10 years ago or whatever. Jude Law was also involved. Viggo Mortensen and Ben Kingsley were all attached at one point. I think Viggo for like 2 years or something. And then as far as directors, there was a bunch of different people attached to direct. David Slade, who did Hard Candy and 30 Days of Night, and I think one of the Twilight movies. And Neil Marshall, who did The Descent and the Hellboy movie with David Harbour. We're both, and a bunch of other people have been attached to direct this at various different times. So it's definitely what I think they call like development hell kind of situation. And so, yeah, it does seem like the kind of thing that you hear, oh, they spent 20 years on this, and for me, at least, I don't think it was worth it. I didn't love this movie. I didn't hate it. I just thought it was a little boring and a little slow, and I was a little underwhelmed by the Dracula. Although I like the overall appearance and the idea they based on Nosferatu, I just didn't like the CGI and would have preferred practical effects. I like practical effects in horror movies. So yeah, I think my score on this one's going to be a 6 out of 10. I thought it was okay, not great. For me, not really worth going out to the theater to see it, but if it comes on Netflix in a couple months or something like that, a streaming service, Sure, why not? Go for it. Oh yeah, I also didn't love the ending too much. I remember that too, where it just ends with the doctor survives and he's like, "Oh hey, I'm gonna go hunt down Dracula now," and you're like, "Okay, I guess," but like honestly, that kind of sounds like a more interesting movie, but I don't think you're gonna get to make your sequel. I do like the idea of a black doctor in the 1800s, though. I would totally watch a TV show about that. Get to work on that, guys. I don't know. So yeah, 6 out of 10. That is my score. But if you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night, and I will see you here again next week.